it's kind of a guide to help you on your road to choosing an executive assistant. And
Mhm.
then after you've picked one, how to make sure you're getting the most out of the relationship. And that's based on both mine and Stephanie's hard experience. We're, 35 combined plus years of working as full-time executive assistants, and we've been running ProAssisting now, and we're 6.5 years.
So what mistakes do clients make when they are working with an executive assistant that kind of blows up that relationship?
The one we deal with most is the quote unquote "I can do it faster myself" mentality.
Oh, I'm sure that's got to be rampant. Get it?
Well, because in the beginning of the relationship,
Yeah.
a hard charging entrepreneur or founder business owner feels constricted by having to do something in double the time that it would normally take them because they're training their executive assistant. What they fail to connect with in the moment is that if you have a good assistant and you train them well, you're never going to have to do it again. And
Mhm.
so, what is the time, the compounding time effect on you and your business if you are never going to have to do that again? We have our own executive assistant that we've had for about 6 months now. And so I have had a hard time doing that as well. So
Interesting.
I don't want to shy away from the fact that, this is something that's really easy to do, but the benefits are tremendous. And so taking that one step further, if that's where your brain is at, you're not going to feel the value. The assistant's going to be discouraged, and then usually it's going to drop off, and it's going to be like, I'm beyond help. But there's a lot of times when I am coaching a client through that, and it's always rewarding when they send a note and say, "Oh, I just offloaded this to Jill. It was fantastic. I didn't have to think about it. Thank you." Um, and I do a lot of coaching on both sides, the EA side and the client side, through these relationships, um, because it's kind of new in that the virtual assistant space is kind of viewed as more task based, and you send the information off and it comes back, and either it's right or it's wrong, and sometimes it's slower, sometimes it's faster. With us, our given that we've limited the number of clients that our assistants have, just like your assistant, you know, you should be feeling that support Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, in and out of your business in the slower times of her other clients. And then when you're busy, she's focused on you. And that creates a natural relationship that is sticky. And a principal slash client doesn't want to go through the process of onboarding someone else again. So once you get to over that hump of, wow, Jill's doing a great job, you're willing to have some difficult conversations throughout the relationship to make it better. Have some understanding around them living a life and also having other clients, and you realizing that frankly you're probably getting a steal in terms of what your line item in your budget is for your executive assistant. And that's our goal.
So I got to ask, what's the task that you in the last 6 months have struggled with being patient on?
What do you mean being patient
Well, you
on, or
you had said that you struggled a little bit with like,
handing it
it's gonna
off?
take a little longer to get done and you can get done faster. Yeah. What's
Yeah. Um, it's been merging our assistant into our business to where she is really the point person for all recruitment, and having those first conversations with executive assistants, training her up on what I look for on the LinkedIn profile,
Mhm.
how I'm going to ask someone certain questions, how to explain our model and what the important parts of it are.
Yeah.
It's good because our assistant also serves a client as well.
No.
And so she's not full time with us. And so she came in as an assistant, and then what that does is she knows the process. She knows the expectations. It's all an expectations and deadline game, if you will. If the principal is being clear on their expectations and when the deadlines are, and allowing the assistant to manage the priority of the to-do list and the projects, that's usually a recipe for success.
Which makes sense because that's such a recipe, and yeah, just the business world in general. When you have a team member who's a full-time team member, one of your
Right.
employees, giving them specific executables, deadlines, expectations. It seems, as we talk here, so obvious, but for so many people, it doesn't actually come into fruition.
With our roles, I think what makes it more difficult is that it's hard to express exactly what executive assistants do.
Hmm.
So I get the question all the time, what do you do as an executive assistant? And normally, if it was a year ago or 2 years ago before we wrote the book, I was saying I do a little bit of everything, or
Yeah,
there isn't anything I don't do,
yeah,
as opposed to saying, I provide support to my principal as a business partner, a chief of staff, a project manager, assistant scheduler, and a personal assistant. In that latter way, the person asking the question can actually put themselves in those shoes and say, how could I use a chief of staff?
yeah,
You mean I wouldn't have to talk to the guy who cuts my yard?
yeah.
Uh, or I wouldn't have to communicate with the general contractor who talks my ear off every single time I talk to them? Or I can have you interface with the chairman of the board and make sure that the board packet is all ready to go for the board meeting next week? Wow. You know,
I got to assume that it's stuff like that. Because the question that always comes into my mind that I get worried about with my assistants, where I was like, am I going to have enough for them to do?
mhm.
And you even just saying that, for me, and I'm assuming for people listening, it just gives you another way to think about, like, oh, I didn't think about that type of thing. I didn't think about how easy it is to have them do that, or getting that off my plate. And then to think about the time management aspect of it, of how much time that gives you back in your life when you're not trapped on a 30-minute conversation with your contractor, right? Because somebody else is taking care of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got news for you. The general contractor doesn't want to talk to the assistant either. They just want to make it transactional and be done with it.
That's so funny.
The
I bet
thing,
we're like, talk to me for like half an hour. She's like, I did like 10 minutes maybe at the max.
yeah. Yeah. No, and the thing is that a lot of people say that. A lot of prospects when they come to us say exactly what you just said. Like, I don't know if I have enough. And then they get over the hump and they just say, okay, I'm gonna sign up, partnering me with an assistant, and they start working with the assistant. And the foundational work is that assistant slash scheduler role. So in that context, the assistant starts handling their schedule, doing their travel, putting out little fires, and through that, a trust is built.
Yeah.
And then they're like, wait a second, I need to deal with my son's nanny in this situation. Can you make that call, because I got to run into this meeting?
Yeah.
And so, and then, ooh, wait a second, I totally double booked this philanthropic board meeting. Can you go and sit in for me and take notes? I'll clear it with the board chair before we go. Kind of getting that two places at once kind of thing.
That's cool.
So it slowly builds, and if the relationship is going well, the trust is being built, there's a no love and trust between principal and assistant, it will eventually fill up all five of those quadrants, if you will.
That's really cool. I like that thought process. Let's talk about the 24-hour workday, 29-hour workday. First of all, how do you get the 29 hours out of it? I'm sure a lot of people think about that. And really, let's walk through like what I'm going to get when I read through that book.
It's 29 hours because of the 5 performance multipliers that I mentioned.
Okay.
That it should give you 5 more hours in your day, because your assistant is handling things under each of those 5 performance multipliers.
Right.
Obviously, it's a play on Tim Ferriss's book. Absolutely. And in terms of what you're going to get out of it. It's kind of a guide to help you on your road to choosing an executive assistant. And then after you've picked one, how to make sure you're getting the most out of the relationship. And that's based on both mine and Stephanie's hard experience. We're, 35 combined plus years of working as full-time executive assistants. And we've been running ProAssisting now, and we're 6.5 years.
Hey, there's no reason to learn how to own your role on your own. If you like that clip, go ahead and click right here for another one. Or if you want to watch the entire podcast, go ahead and click right here. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.